It's 9 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming this morning. We appreciate the attendance and abiding by the.
It is.
Abiding by the health rules about masks and social distancing. Mr. Auditor, could you call the meeting to order with a roll?
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Thank you. Are there any, has everyone had an opportunity to view the agenda? If so, are there any additions or revisions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the minutes. Again, has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting, which would have been May the 27th, 2020?
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
You might want to say for the minutes that was a Zoom meeting. It wasn't like we met in person, so anybody
Yes.
concerned.
Thank you, Judy. That was on May the 27th, an electronic Zoom meeting, but it is recorded. Item number 5 under old business, 5.1, an update on the school corporation property acquisition with Mr. Bosma.
Thank you, Mr. President. And it's great to see everybody in person. You all look, whatever that enhancement feature on Zoom, I can now see that you are all using it. And if you didn't know that, Judy, there is an actual appearance enhancement
Yes, there is.
function on the Zoom calls.
I'll remember that next time I'm zooming from my kitchen table.
There you go. So just an update on the school corporation transaction. We have set the closing date on that property for July 20th, and due diligence will be completed by July 6th. We have already completed the environmental assessment by Patriot Engineering. It was clean. I received a draft of the survey yesterday, which I have not yet had a chance to review, and title work has been received. No complicating factors there, so it appears that we will be proceeding to closing. We do have the access agreement in place with the school corporation, so Hilton Garden Inn is able to park cars at that location. That's allowing Mr. Koistra and Garmong, who will be giving a report shortly on the status, to begin construction of stormwater and utility items on the Hilton Garden Inn's north parking lot, which we will not possess, but need to have improvements on that location to service the convention center. And that's moving forward. There's some other parking complications that are going to be under new business. I'll save those for then. But so all is going well in the school corporation acquisition at this point, and happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions?
We do have the parking for the school corporation resolved.
Yes, that would be under new business item 6.1, part of our agreement with the school corporation as we displaced them for HGI was to provide them with 50 spaces at Sky Garden, which Boo worked through negotiating with them, and we've got an agreement for your consideration and under new business. And honestly, we didn't bring that before prior to this because we didn't know when they were going to need the spots. And then the superintendent emailed a week ago and said they're going to start occupying the building again on the 22nd, next Monday. So that's why it's on today's agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bosma. Item number 5.2 under old business, Brian Koistra from Garmon Construction Services with an update on the progress of construction.
We have a motion on this?
All right, thank you, President Marlowe, members of the board, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. What I'd like to do
They all look
is
the
spend a few
same.
minutes, update everybody on progress we have made over the last 6 or 7 weeks, and then give you an idea of what's done. So recent progress, what we're terming as phase 1 utilities, this is really the HGI, Haute Garden in North Block. Sanitary sewer installation complete, as well as grease trap, storm sewer installations. We're also in electric conduits, transformer bases, and gas service, have all been installed. I've got a graphic as well as, see off to the right, 25 utility garden in signs have been installed as of yesterday on the school corporation, indicating that that is ground. So here's a plan view of really work that's been accomplished over the last few weeks. You can see lower left-hand corner is the Hilton Garden Inn, 7th Street to your left, Cherry Street to your top, Wabash. Zoom in a little bit here, so you see the portage shear canopy. To the Hilton Garden Inn, you can see the mess of utilities that had to be installed, really right up against the Hilton Garden. Some of which were 12 and 14 feet. So it's challenging work, but everything that's highlighted has been completed. It's honestly one of the more trickier components of utility. But here's some pictures that show the work taking place. The first one to your left is the sewer tap taking place. So you can see trench boxes and other equipment there that allow the workers to access the work that far below the ground. You can see, it's a little hard to see, but the picture to the right shows the existing utilities that we had to work with. So there's a manhole there that is the existing Hilton Garden Inn storm structure. Just beyond that is 5 or 6 electrical conduits, which is the main electrical feed to the Hilton Garden. So those all had to stay in place while the sewer work was installed on. What you see here is electrical infrastructure. Picture on the left, 3 transformer bases that will serve the convention center, the Hilton Garden Inn, and the future Marriott. And the second picture is looking north towards the Cherry City parking garage. See the utility, the electric conduits being installed there. Last picture here is of the grease trap. Picture on the left, you get a feel for the size of that piece of equipment. Picture to the right, that installed. So that'll catch the waste from the kitchen of the convention center and separate water. Upcoming activities, we are continuing utility installations that'll tie in well to Mr. Bosman's request, mulches and parking, holding lot. I've got a graphic with that as well. Installation of the storm trap on Hilton Garden Inn North Lot. Talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Then the restoration of the Hilton Garden Inn North Lot. So once we get all these utilities in, it's a requirement that we put that lot back as good or newer condition that would take place really during the month of August. And then closing of 8th Street Permanent. It's coming up. I think it's August 1st, maybe is what we'll recommend. yellow rectangle, that is A Street. So you can see A Street is now occupied or will be occupied by the future Marriott expansion, as well as kind of runs right down the center of the convention. And then colored lines to the right of that are the utilities we are wanting to install here in the next few weeks. Those utilities really fall within the state office building parking. See where 8th Street is, this is the piece of that. It really occupies the western third of the state office building parking. Thus, the need to move folks parking there into another location to accommodate this work. Once we install this work, our intention would be to put it back in temporary condition until October 1st.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys want me to start over?
Yeah.
To put the parking lot back in a condition of a temporary basis up until October 1st, which is really when we need to take that whole area, both the state office building lot, the Holman lot, and really get the project moving at that point. Want to talk a little bit about storm traps and understand that sometimes we probably throw out terminology that nobody really understands what it means. I know when Jason Semler talks, I'm always nodding my head, but really don't understand half the things he says. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what a storm trap is and how they function, because they are a major piece of the construction. So we've got two of them on the project. You can see the one to the left is in the Hilton Garden Inn North lot, and then the one to the right is under what will be the convention center parking garage. So what is a storm trap? Storm trap's a manufacturer's name. So that's what they go by. What it is an underground stormwater containment and discharge system. And basically, it's an approach to collecting and discharging stormwater in a kind of a downtown environment, right? Because where land's abundant, you typically will install a retention pond, right? Because you've got the land there to accommodate collecting the stormwater. Or, you know, if there's places to discharge the stormwater, creeks, streams, things of that nature. We don't have that luxury in downtown Terre Haute. So we're using this storm trap device. To give you a little idea on the size of these things, the Hilton Garden Inn North lot, the storm trap there is 25 foot wide, 100 foot long, and 9 foot deep. That would be about the equivalent of 6 semi-trailers stacked 3 wide, 2 deep. The convention center garage is about 50% longer than the north lot. It's 25 foot by 150 by 9 foot. So it would be the equivalent of 9 semi-trailers. Basically dig a hole, set 9 semi-trailers in there, and cover it up is what you've got. Here's a couple pictures that show kind of what it looks like. The one on the left is more of an animation, but really speaks to the project, right? We're storing the stormwater underground, and then we're, in the case of the parking garage, we're building a parking garage on top of that. Now, I will say our foundation system goes around the storm structure, doesn't bear on top of it. So don't think, you know, once we get full of cars, it's going to crush this thing. We're bearing 40 foot below the ground, but that gives you an idea of kind of the concept. And then the picture on the left is that material being installed on a construction site. So anyways, just a little bit of useless knowledge for you to go forward with, but that's what a storm trap is. Project schedule, we started on site April 22nd. Our completion date is April 27th, 2022. We are on schedule, and I will tell you, our goal is to beat that completion date, and that's what we are working towards. Some upcoming milestones. The Hilton Garden Inn North Lot, that storm trap equipment is delivering July 27th. Later than we would have liked, but we can definitely stay on schedule with that delivery date. Close 8th Street permanently, I mentioned that earlier. Excuse me. We're looking around August 31st to do that. Phase 1 work complete. So this is phase 1 as it relates to the agreement with hotel partners. Phase 1 being that north lot. We are looking to have that complete and turned back over to Hilton Garden Inn on September 11th, which would allow phase 2 work to begin on September 15th. Phase 2 work, again, as it relates to the hotel partners, would be the lot to the east of the Hilton Garden Inn, bordered between the Hilton Garden Inn and 8th Street. So I believe the way the deal is structured is once phase 1 is complete, then we're authorized to begin with phase 2, which based on this schedule will be September 15th. Just a reminder, we are putting monthly construction reports together. We have been every month since December. We are now including distribution to all CIB members. I think there's some confusion previously, but that will be sent to all CIB members going forward. Reports contain, really what we feel is pertinent information of what's transpired over the last month on the project, which includes an executive summary, the construction budget summary, which identifies the guaranteed maximum price and gives you a breakdown on allowances, contingencies, things of that nature, an updated project schedule, and then numerous photos of work that has been completed during that period. And with that, I will.
Hold on just a minute. I want to make
Yes.
sure the mayor's.
Are you on there, Mayor?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay.
That concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Now I know what a storm trap is.
Now you know what a storm trap is.
Mr. President, can I add something? I think this was very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I'm confident that the board feels good about knowing some of the things that you think are mundane. I do, and I would suggest that this update be incorporated into your future meetings, all of them. I think we're probably to that point where there's going to be developments that you all are going to want to hear.
Yeah, I'm happy to give a similar presentation every month if you like. So,
Brian, thank you. One thing I would ask, I know things happen during the construction process, but if that September 11th date to the hotel would be pushed back, let me know too, beyond the hotel, because if things return to normal, we have a big slate of events, and so I just need to know whether that's available or not.
okay.
And give those corresponding teams or whoever time to search something else, so.
We sure will. We're confident in that date, but if something comes up, we'll be sure to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Still under old business, item 5.3, the update on the convention center management discussions with
I'll take ownership of that one, Mr. President, and there's little to report at this moment. We have, because we've been so focused on property acquisition and some other things. This one has gotten kind of pushed to the back burner. We are going to have some discussions. I'm going to have some discussions with Nations Group today and a representative of the board comparing the changes in the market with the current situation, the current convention situation around the country. So we'll have a brief discussion about that this afternoon, following the meeting, and hopefully make some progress prior to your next board meeting. We have prepared a markup of their suggested contract, which I've not shared with anyone yet, including Nations Group, till we get it in a form that we're comfortable having it circulate.
Chris or Steve, do you have anything to add at this point? Okay. All right. No other old business to discuss. Item number 6.1 under new business, the adoption of Resolution 2020-06. That would be approving the parking agreement with Sky Garden Parking. Mr. Bosman?
Thank you, Mr. President. As we mentioned earlier, part of your agreement with the school corporation was to have immediate access with their parking lots and to displace their visitors and employees and board members from those spots, with the exception of a few. They retained a few spots on the site. So our agreement with them was to have 50 parking spots available in Sky Garden. We found out really on last Friday or this Monday that that needs to commence on the 22nd. I worked with Boo with discussions with Sky Garden Parking. We've shared an agreement with you. Normally, their first offer to us was to sign for 1 year. I put kind of an escape clause in there with a prepayment of $3,800 essentially, rather than the full year, just in case something should happen with the school corporation purchase. I don't anticipate that, but I didn't want to get there, have a problem, and not be able to exit the contract. So the contract's pretty simple. It's their standard with my additions to it that mostly include the exit clause. They also have their Sky Garden general parking rules are attached to that. The resolution authorizes the president to sign this agreement. There will have to be some local coordination on picking up 50 parking passes and getting them to the school corporation, from Sky Garden to the school corporation for Monday, which is when they want to start. I know the superintendent, I got a ping back on an email from him that he was unavailable, so someone's going to have to reach out there and try to make a coordination. I've done what I can by email to make that happen. So this will also require a payment in the initial amount of $3,450 will be due on Monday. So if we can make that arrangement also. So with that, happy to answer any questions. The resolution authorizes the president to sign the agreement. Sky Garden's already accepted the changes we proposed. So yes, please, Boo.
I'm not sure, I don't feel, I'm not sure about item 7, why would you guys need the all costs?
Well, I emailed the superintendent and their lawyer. Well, first of all, the agreement is with us, right? With you, I should say, with the CIB. So you're the only party to the agreement. We are going to have to enter into some arrangement with the school corporation, certainly on the replacement of lost cards. That's entirely out of your hands and is entirely in theirs. We can take up the towing issue with them. Oh, I see. So it's any vehicle. It's not a vehicle that parks in the reserved spots on the third floor. It's if the reserved folks park somewhere else than their reserved spot. That's what we need to follow back up with the school corporation and either amend our agreement with them or have an arrangement with them that those costs will be passed along to them, because those are entirely out of your hands.
Right.
Yeah,
So there's no way to do it otherwise because you're the party to the agreement. What we need to have then is an agreement with the school corporation that they will reimburse those expenses or pay them up front. Because it is their fault, right? So the agreement, unless the school corporation was a party to this agreement, it couldn't say the school corporation will be responsible because they're not a party to the agreement. It would not be enforceable against them.
Why can't we just say that the violator would be responsible for those charges?
Okay, I'll propose that to David Adams, is that his name? And see if we can. Oh, well, that's their standard agreement. So, yeah, if they're willing to change that, I think that'd be wonderful. And then we don't have to worry about, we'll inform the school corporation rather than have an agreement with them that they'll be, yeah. That's actually an excellent suggestion. So I'll follow up on that one today. And the resolution just authorizes the president to execute the agreement, and we'll just include in that we'll try to make this change.
And we are limited to pay for 50, right?
Yes.
Is that in here?
Yep.
Missed it. Sorry.
All right.
I thumbed too fast.
Mr. President, I'd make a motion to accept the resolution with the caveat that we change that wording to where the violator would incur the expense as opposed to the CIB. And have Brian look into that.
All right.
And I'll second that motion.
Mayor, second.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. The motion has been made and seconded with the caveat. All those in favor, do we need a roll call or?
You know what? You probably should, because I should explain that under normal circumstances, the mayor could not participate in the meeting via conference, or anyone else for that matter, via conference call. We're still under the executive order, which means you could all participate remotely if you desire to do so. So the order requires a roll call, and I would suggest that a roll call be made. In fact, I'd suggest
Should I
it.
second it instead of the mayor?
No, he can participate.
He can participate.
Yeah, he can participate fully under the
Okay.
executive order. I would suggest a couple things since we're talking about it. I've changed a couple of your procedures. Everybody touching a paper to sign it, right? These are things I think are going to start changing, not just for you, but for lots of people. So rather than everybody signing every resolution in your minutes, I've got the chairman signing them and showing roll calls now. If that's something you want to change permanently, I'd suggest it's a good change. It makes it a little bit easier in addition. And I'm sorry, that's kind of an aside on your resolution. But yes, the mayor can participate and can second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Witt? Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Marvel?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Lloyd?
Aye.
Mayor Bennett?
Aye.
The spirit has spoken.
And resolution 2020-06 passes with the caveat.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that.
All right, item 6.2 under new business, adoption of resolution 2020-07, which is authorizing alternative lease procedure. Mr. Bosma?
Thank you, Mr. President. So Mr. Koister indicated that the agreement with the Hotel Garden, that's not right. What is it? Hilton Garden. I'm going to say Hotel Garden. Hilton Garden was that we would have their property by September 15th. That is not final at this point. So in fact, our initial agreement with them has expired. And I want to start by saying it's always best to acquire property for a project before somebody knows you really need it. Unfortunately, that's not what I was presented with when I first started working with you, or what you're presented with today. So as part of the discussion with the Hilton Garden Inn, which desires a permanent parking solution, and I do not fault them for that. It's required by their franchise to have a permanent parking solution because we are taking, by purchase, their parking lot to the east of the Hilton Garden Inn, which is the one that Mr. Koistra referred to, that we want to start constructing on September 15th. So we have acquired, we have in place the acquisition of the school corporation property. It is anticipated that there will be an offer to lease and perhaps acquire that property related to the use of the Hilton Garden Inn, which would not be allowed under a direct negotiation like that under your normal property disposal laws that are applicable to governmental entities, with a few exceptions like aviation boards and redevelopment commissions. Don't have to follow a process. The process that normally would be followed would require appraisals and a lease of the property at no less than fair market rental value. That's not probably what's going to be proposed here. The statute offers an alternate procedure anticipating economic development use of property, as we're talking about here, that would not be the customary governmental lease of property, and it's called the alternative lease procedure. It's presented by Section 12 of the public property disposal statute. I've circulated a memorandum that explains its provisions to you. That provides for a request for proposal process in which the board can place provisions that focus the response to someone who can fulfill certain obligations, like the providing of property for a project, like the east parking lot, and other procedures. And a public notice is made of the RFP. Respondents are reviewed, and the board can pick the most appropriate response, not the highest response, the most appropriate response. So this is a flexibility provision in state statute. To begin the process and to get it done quickly so that we can attempt to meet the September 15th deadline that we, with some breathing room that we want for the start of construction, this was added to the agenda by the president last evening. I'm sorry that I hate doing that, sending you something late and saying, here's stuff, doesn't really give you enough time to review it, but this all kind of broke in the last 48 hours that this was the procedure that would have to happen for us to meet the September 15th deadline. So the resolution authorized the president in consultation with the vice president, so there's two of you looking at it, to publish a request for proposal, which we will work with Nations Group to put together and publish. And I gave you a brief synopsis of a timeline, which would anticipate the first notice of RFP on July 22nd, which is 2 days after the anticipated closing of the school property. We could possibly move that up even before closing to get the process going after we look at the timeline here a little bit. There's 2 notices required. Respondents have the opportunity to submit a proposal, and then the statute allows you to negotiate with them. So this will commence the negotiations, hopefully, with the HGI to bring the permanent parking solution to a successful close, which is what the biggest piece that we have out there that's not completed yet. So the resolution authorizes the president, vice president to approve an RFP document, which we in Nations Group will produce, and to make a recommendation to the board. The board, unless a miracle happens and we get this all done before the next board meeting, will likely approve a response, hopefully at the August 19th CIB meeting, which would then allow us to close on the properties and turn them over to Garmong and get boots on the ground on those properties that we do not have not acquired at this point. If you use this alternate procedure, the executive of the unit also must just approve its use. They aren't involved in it. They just have to say, yep, you can use this alternate procedure. So I would work with Mr. Wright to get a resolution at the next commissioners meeting. All they would do is approve the alternate procedure to go forward. It's not their property. They don't have to be involved in the process at all. The CIB will be. It's just the executive has to say, yeah, you can use this alternate procedure. Happy to answer questions. Again, apologize for this being a late break.
Board have any questions? Hearing none. Chair is open for motion to approve.
Move to approve resolution number 2020-07.
The motion has been made by Judy Anderson. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Dave Patterson seconded the motion. Roll call.
Mr. Witt? Sanderson?
Aye.
Mr. Marble?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
Mayor Bennett?
Aye.
And Ms. Lloyd?
Aye.
Right. Resolution 2020-07 has been passed. 6.3 under new business, the alternative parking arrangements for the state office building. That would be authorizing the president to approve a parking agreement. Mr. Bosma?
So I feel like I've become a parking attendant here in the last week. During the discussions on the last item you just resolved, it was brought to my attention that Garmong desired to have access to the state office building parking lot to commence utility and some other infrastructure that has to happen there. Well, that displaces folks from parking spaces as well, and was a holdup. We came up with a no-cost solution on this one, and that is to authorize the president to enter into an access or parking agreement with the owner of the state office building to allow parking on the Holman lot for state employees on a temporary basis. We own that property. It's not being used other than some apparent random parkers are parking there, 4 or 5 folks. And I didn't have a resolution on this one. It wasn't that much of a formal deal, but I would encourage, I should say, the board to adopt a motion granting the president the authority to give parking rights to the state office building on the Holman lot.
Do we need any home harmless agreement?
Yeah, we'll put together, we actually have one because there was a time when the Holman folks were going to park there, so we can change the name on an agreement that is in existence and get that circulated so that Garmong can access that property. We can get that done pretty quickly.
But just to be clear, it's property the CIB already owns, and all we will be doing is granting state office building people to park there.
That's right, and we don't need that. I was told in conversations yesterday, we don't require that Holman property for construction until October 1-ish, something like that. So that, and by that time, the utility work will be long done. So this would just be a temporary parking arrangement, and we document it.
Do they have a timeline that they anticipate the state office building people to be moved? Does anybody know that?
When, oh, you mean on a permanent basis?
Mhm.
I do not believe that has transpired yet
Okay.
because of the concerns about
Yeah.
reuse of that property and what's going to happen.
All right, 6.3 needs an approval by the board to allow me, the president, to approve parking agreement.
I move we approve.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Brad Anderson has moved for that approval, seconded by Dave Patterson. Mr. Auditor, roll call.
Anderson,
Aye.
Marvel,
Aye.
Mr. Henderson,
Aye.
Mayor Bennett,
Aye.
Dave Patterson,
Aye.
Lou Lloyd.
Aye.
Who actually seconded that? Was it the mayor or was it Boo? Yeah,
Dave. It's me.
it wasn't Dave, actually.
Oh,
It was the mayor.
I was watching his Dave's lips didn't move, that I could tell.
Mayor, we can't see your lips.
I know.
All right. Now, item 6.4 under new business, the consideration of a construction camera for the Terre Children's Museum. I know this is a new thing for the board to be hearing, but we have the director of the Children's Museum.
Good morning, Mr. President and
Good
Board.
morning.
My name is Susan Turner, and I'm the Executive Director of the Terre Haute Children's Museum. It's my pleasure to be here today. It's down a little bit shorter than Brian. We have been closed at the museum due to COVID-19 since March 16th. I'm very excited to say that our opening day is tomorrow. So tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we will be open for business again. And I'm very optimistic that the children and families of the Wabash Valley and the 22 counties that we serve will be safe and come back and visit us to enjoy the museum and all that we have to offer. In January of 2020, we cut the ribbon on a brand new exhibit, which is titled Under Construction, and it's presented by the Wabash Valley Contractors Association as our title sponsor. And I have posters for you all. So if you just want to take one and pass it around. This is truly a collaborative effort between lots of organizations within our community. I called Brian Koistra one day and said, hey, can I take you to coffee? And he said yes. Side note, if I ever ask you to go to coffee, you should probably really consider that because I'm going to ask you for something. So I asked Brian to go to coffee with me. He brought Marla flowers with him. And I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. The convention center is going to be built right across the street from our building. And I have the perfect view of the construction site in my boardroom. If you have not been up to the third floor of the Children's Museum, you are missing out on a great view of downtown Terre Haute. It's an entire wall made of windows, and you have the perfect view of what's happening across the street. I said, Brian, wouldn't it be great if we took that space offline as our boardroom and turned it into an exhibit completely focused on construction and the building trades? Wouldn't that be great, Brian? Wouldn't you like to sponsor that? And so I asked him for an amount, and he said, I'll do half of that, but I'll also introduce you to people. And so over the course of 3 months, Brian introduced me to a whole part of Terre Haute that I didn't know those people. So we went out, we talked about the project, and I've been a fundraiser for 15 plus years. This is the easiest thing I've ever raised money for. Checks would just show up on my desk because it was such a supported project. We have touched on all of the major building trades. The focus of the exhibit is really to teach children how buildings are built, to let them know that there are really good jobs available, careers available in the building trades, to actually get some hands-on experience using tools. That was very important to me, that they would learn how to use a hammer and a screwdriver and build things. And also to get that bird's eye view of the construction of the convention center. The children that are coming to play at the Terre Haute Children's Museum are going to have all kinds of life events happen in that building. They're probably going to go to prom there someday. They might have their wedding there. They might go to a convention there. How cool is it to think that they would have had the chance to see it built from the ground up? Within the construction exhibit, we have a welding simulator. We have a bricklaying exhibit where you actually learn how to lay bricks appropriately. There is a section where you learn about steel beams and how do you build a steel structure. Looking right over the convention center is our little preschool area where we have mulched tires and Tonka trucks so that they can play in there with the trucks. We have telescopes that they can look over to the construction site and zoom in on the different workers and what they're doing. It is an amazing exhibit. Everyone who's come in to see it has been blown away with the things that we've added in to the museum. And a lot of the exhibit pieces were constructed by our own tradespeople. They had hands-on say in what we built, and some of them actually built it themselves. One of the pieces of the exhibit that's still missing is a time-lapse video of the construction project. And so I'm here to ask if the CIB would be interested in sponsoring that part of the exhibit. We would install a camera that's going to be donated by Garmong on top of our building. And we would have a time lapse for 21 months is what the contract is of the actual construction going on across the street. That video will be uploaded every week and it will play on a loop continuously in the exhibit. So the children can actually see what's happening across the street that day. They can also look up in the corner at the TV and see from the day that the camera was installed till that week what has happened. What questions might you have?
May I ask you a question, Mr. President? First of all, thank you for being here. Is the camera 24/7?
Yes.
Brian, did you have anything you could add?
I would add that when Susan asked for money, she really asked for money, so, half was probably more than I was anticipating to begin with, but, I just applaud her and her efforts. I do think it's a wonderful exhibit. It really touches on, like Susan had mentioned, construction as a career and the good opportunities available. So I couldn't be any more supportive of that. The camera, it is a camera we own. It's an ox blue camera, which means nothing to you, but it's kind of an construction industry, gold standard as far as cameras. It's about an $8,000 camera. Thing's massive, bulletproof. It's currently not in use. We're happy to donate it to the project. What I believe Susan is asking for is the subscription service for this company to, make it accessible via the internet and capture all of this, all of these images and data and store it for you, and then make it accessible. So,
I guess the big question would be the cost.
Oh, sure. It's a 21-month subscription, and the cost is $8,000.
Is the video allowed to be outside the museum? Like, can I be at home and pull it up?
I would say yes. That's how we typically use it. I haven't been involved in the agreement, but I think the answer is definitely yes. You can pull it up on your phone and you can even move the camera around to get different vantage points. So it's very user friendly and interactive.
It could be placed on the CIB's link to it could be placed on the CIB's website. Pretty advantageous.
I see this as an opportunity to just add another element of education to the kids, but also to the community. Those individuals who don't drive downtown every day, they could jump on and look at it and see what's happening and be proud of all the growth that we're seeing in our community right now.
Yes, Chris?
We can take it offline.
thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Oh,
Ah,
okay.
Easy.
Thank you.
good job,
appreciate it.
Susan. Good job.
Yay! My work here is done. Thank you.
Quite
Thank
the
you so
seller.
much.
Thank you, Chris.
Well,
Yeah,
if you have not had a chance to come and see the exhibit, please give me a call. I'd love to give you a tour. I'm completely biased. It's awesome. It's so cool. We are so fortunate to have a museum of this caliber in our community right downtown. It's amazing, the facility as a whole, but I'm really proud of this exhibit. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, you know, we all have seen those images on TV with buildings being built and ships and airplanes, and I think this would be an excellent thing for the CIB to have, and we could even run it in the convention center someplace where people could see how the building was built.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Armand
Chris.
done this on the jail, a jail use building. I saw the video of that, you know, and it's really neat to see how that jail struck.
yeah, thanks to everyone involved. I think it's wonderful, and Chris, you and Steve, thanks for stepping up and making it happen. That's wonderful. Thanks.
All right, our next regular board meeting will be July the 15th. And good Lord willing, we'll be back here again in the county council chambers. Is there any other business to bring before the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? We're adjourned. Thank you.
There you go, Boo.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're just so quiet.
Are we,
Fill it out.
Brian, are we going over here?
Okay, we're done with the regular meeting, Mayor. Now we'll go to the executive session here in a few minutes, or you know, stay on for that. We'll call you back.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, we'll call you back in a little bit, okay?
All right,
All right.
thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Jamie, for all this. That's great. All right.
Going over there.
There you go.
Well, no, thank you.
I had to sit out 6 feet up. And then, no, I didn't. I had 3 people up here, 2 people there, 2 people there. That's why they were all
Yeah, it's pretty neat thing. Over there. I don't know if you want to make, have Lisa make another pot of coffee. Not you, I said have Lisa. Have Lisa make another pot of coffee.
Well, that'll be, I don't remember anything. So it just, I mean, that will put me in context. And that'll help us. Great, absolutely. Cool, good to see you.
Okay, Boo, we gotta sign some stuff first. We gotta sign some things here.
I noticed it didn't have plates on it.
I love it.
Yeah, that's a cool looking.
I've been this.
I had,
I'm out of business. I sold.
You did? I didn't know.
I sold the house.
The
I
coffee
still own the
shop.
building.
Okay. You just sold the building.
Yeah, guy came up to me, great. Just want to sell. He's a local guy.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Doing an amazing job inside. They're really good. Great.
yeah, so I love it. I mean, it just sounds
Yeah,
nice.
that's great.